Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Bigfoot Zone, ECBRO. This show is a collection of tales by individuals who have had personal sightings, encounters, and interactions with these elusive creatures. Stories from people of many ages and from many backgrounds. The events in these stories have taken place in several states. As the listener reviews these accounts, the integrity, details, and sincerity of each story will be evident. And if you need a little encouragement in confirming what you already believe, or perhaps what you experienced personally, this podcast is for you. So ladies and gentlemen, sit back and relax, and be sure to share this around and give our YouTube channel a like. Stay tuned.
We go.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, it's Daniel Benoit, your host, and I want to welcome everybody back to another episode of Bigfoot Zone, ECBRO. And tonight, we have all the way from Ohio, Mr. Jeff Lilly. Jeff Lilly, it's a pleasure to have you, man. Welcome aboard, man. How are you tonight?
I'm
Uh-oh, you froze up. All right, Jeff. You are actually currently froze at the
we're
moment.
having technical difficulty.
Uh-oh,
Wow.
there we
What
go.
is going on?
I got I got you back. You're back now, so
All right, good. I'm doing good. How about you, buddy? You doing all right?
yeah, I'm doing pretty good for a Friday night. I'm kind of pumped to be here, and I hope our viewers are too. Real quick, I want to let everybody know that's just jumping on. Feel free to share this around. Because tonight, let me throw out a reminder for those who have seen my posts on Facebook. At some point today, there's no set time during tonight's podcast, but I am going to ask a trivial question, and the first person that I see respond correctly through the live chat will win a set of tickets to the 2024 ECBRO Virginia Bigfoot Conference. So let that be known. Again, I'm watching the live chat at the moment. I got the live chat on now, and I'll try my best throughout the podcast to respond or direct questions to our guest tonight. So if you're on here right now, I do encourage you to start sharing around. It's going to be a very interesting and fun show tonight. So hope you grab your drinks, get comfortable, kick back, and let's see what we got going on tonight. So Jeff is a author. He has a series of books he's written over the years. He's actually in the middle of a new one right now that he said today he took a break from writing. So, and yeah, so Jeff, I was debating on where to start with you. I do know that I'm aware that you have some experiences with the elusive creature itself. But before we really get into that, well, I guess maybe we can get into that. But I wanted to see if you wanted to give us a history on what got you started with the writing the books. Was it the experience that started you off writing the books, or was it something else?
Uh, really, my first experience happened when I was about 10. And
Oh,
then the second encounter I had came way later in 95. Then my uncle and my fathers forced me basically to keep everything a secret, because they were afraid that we wouldn't be able to go back up to the spot that we were given permission to fish if I let anything out of the bag. They were afraid that the owner, which was my Uncle Mike's good army buddy, Tom, uh, they were afraid that if we told Tom what had taken place, and then if anything happened, that Tom wouldn't let us go back there and fish anymore. So they forced me to keep it a secret for many years. Well, about after 20 years later, 20 plus, 20, 22 years later, just a life changing situation had, and I sat down with the fiance at the time, and had a discussion with her about it. And she said, "Why don't you just let it be known to the world?" So I decided to do that. And shortly thereafter, I did my first interview uh, with Miguel, the Sasquatch Theory. And then my second interview was with, God bless his soul, Carrie Arnold. And then soon
mm,
after, Carrie said, "Look, you got to write books." Miguel even hit me up and said, you got to start writing. You got to put these stories out there for the world to see and to read. So that's how it all began. Uh, was
mm.
bullied at a very young age, in my early 20s to keep it all quiet. And
Wow.
it took me to a bad spot, you know, really did.
Mm. Yeah, holding something like that you experienced, especially being so young. I mean, I would almost imagine, there's got to be like I don't even know how to describe it myself, but almost scary, but yet like I don't know, like you experienced something, you saw something that you weren't supposed to see, but you were 10 years old, and
Yeah.
you weren't supposed to tell nobody. I mean, because I
Right.
find it easier to talk about stuff,
Yeah.
like if I have issues, or I mean, no matter how small they are, I feel like by expressing them anyway, at least put the
Right.
information out there.
Right.
So
Yeah. It's true.
yeah.
But like, I mean, even my mother was the same. She was the same way with me. Like my job, as a young kid going to school, well, I was the oldest of five, so therefore my job when myself and my sister Angie were first born was when we were old enough to walk back and forth to school was for me to, my duty was to take her back and forth to school. Well, I was 10. She was about 8 going on 9, just a little over a year apart. I was bringing her home from school one day, and we decided to take an upper route away from all the other kids, because I was always picked on when I was little because I was a little guy. So I decided to take an upper street. It was actually the last street up on the top of our town, and it was called Indian Mound. It's at the very tip top, almost the tip top of Norwood. Just up above it, you had a section of Norwood called Indian Mound, and then right after that, a new city starts, which is Pleasant Ridge. Well, I'm
Mm.
walking my sister home back from school one day, early spring, mind you. Everything's still, all the foliage is down, so everything's still kind of shadowy when this first encounter took place. Well, I'm walking her home. It's a little bit after 3. We're coming home from school, North Norwood, which is right at the very bottom of Highland Avenue. Now, mind you, we're coming home, and now we're going up this little bit of incline, but Highland Avenue across the street on one side is houses and a sidewalk that leads all the way to school. But on the opposite side of the street, it's all woods. From there, all the way through Indian Mound and back into a place called Houston Woods. It's all forested. And bringing her home from school one day, all of a sudden we hear like a loud yell or like a whoop, and boom! Immediately a rock hits the ground in the street and shatters, and debris of this rock is flying everywhere. Like boom, hits the asphalt, it shatters. Well, I see debris flying everywhere, and I look around behind me to see if it's maybe one of the neighborhood kids that always messed with me, but there was nobody behind us. So I turn
Mm.
around and I put her to the inside of me, and I grab her hand, and I'm walking her to the inside of me. because that rock hit pretty close. Well, then a few seconds later, another yell or whoop. But basically, what it was. I mean, you can't unsee what you see. It was like
Oh yeah.
it was like a wild man yelling, and then boom, another rock hit. But this time, the debris shattered and hit me in my ankles. And I look
Oh
back
wow.
to the woods, and I'm looking into this pocket of forest, and it's basically it's a. Now that I'm old enough to know, I know it was a deer trail. It was a game trail, but back then I had no clue. So I look back into this open pocket of forest when it's really shady, but I see something huge and immense back there, and it's black, and you could see the face. It was like a dark, leathery, weathery, like a weathered, worn ball glove, worn down, with a flat nose, long hair, 3-inch layers with grayish white tips coming off of it. This thing, I know immediately. Well, first thing I think is, man, that is why would somebody be in there at this time of day? What kind of man would be in the woods this kind of day and acting this way? And then I quickly I put 2 and 2 together, and I knew this wasn't an average human. This thing was humongous. I mean, we're talking hundreds of pounds. So I'm just starstruck, like, oh my God. I know I'm in shock, but I grab her quickly and we bolt down to the house. Well, I go down and immediately tell my mom, hey mom, we know there's a monster in the woods. There's some crazy, wild, humongous man up there, and you got to call the police. I'm afraid somebody's going to get hurt. She tells us to shut up immediately and go back in our room and to do our homework and basically let it be bygones be bygones. So for weeks after that first incident took place, we were scared to death, me and my sister both, because our back bedroom, we shared a room, but we had a separate bed, and her bed was by a window, and my bed was by its own window. And back in behind our apartment where we lived at on Linden, it was back behind us was all woods too. We were afraid for weeks on end that this thing would find us, come down the railroad tracks and come up into the woods and snatch us. So we were traumatized at a young age, and then soon after, like, when I became a teenager, I started hearing the stories from my grandpa, my Uncle Mike, my Uncle Jack, my father, because my Uncle Jack grew up in Arkansas and was really familiar with these things. Later on, I learned this in life, from a teenager to an adult. And then my father and his brothers, West Virginia, Beckley, West Virginia, they hunted every day. They had been paralleled, soon after the story started to come in, and I started putting 2 and 2 together. Well, so nothing happens for quite a few years, like I said. Then my best friend comes to get me one day, and he says, "Let's go up." Let's go up to. He comes to see me on a Friday and says, "Let's go over to Lake Cowan up in northeastern Ohio tomorrow and catch some largemouth bass and some muskie." I said, "Well, I've never been up there." He said, "What's beautiful?" He goes, "We go?" I said, "Yeah." So he come and got me. He come and got me about 6:30ish on a Saturday, and we go up to Lake Cowan. Now we get there early. Nobody else is there. We're the first ones in the boat. I'm thinking, yeah, we're going to get the best spot. I see a set of lily pads. We get right to them, and these bass are down below these lily pads, banging and chasing bait fish. You can see the activity going on. You know what I mean? Just because these huge bass were chasing these fish and banging the stalks. It was either bass or muskie. So I'm like, just put the anchor down here and let's fish here. But whatever you do, bro, please don't hook me in the ear. We both tie on a chrome spoon, right? First cast, I go to cast. He casts and throws this spoon right through the back of my ear, bottom of my ear, clean through. So I'm like, I raise my right hand. I'm like, oh my God, I was getting ready to cast too. Get ready to make my cast when he put that right through my ear. So I look over to the side, and sure enough, the bait house guy is standing out there watching the whole thing happen from across the lake, and he's waving us in. So we go in, and as soon as we hit the bank, he's like, you guys are supposed to hook the fish, not each other. I said, well, you tell him that. You tell him that. I'm like, he said, well, come on in here. And then I go into the bait shop, and he's like, take this wooden spoon, bite down on it, and I'm gonna take these needles. I'm gonna get this hook out of your ear. So I bite down, and boom, sure enough, he pops the barb off and slides right out, and then hands me and says, there's your souvenir. So I'm ready to go home at this point. I'm hurting, like my ear's pounding. I feel my heart beat in my ear. He said, man, let's not go back to the house just yet. I know another place. It's called Todd's Creek. It's a little bit closer towards the house, but it's still far away. But but my muskies that run through there too. This place is called Todd's Creek. Another farmer that owned a huge piece of land, all forests around it. But Todd's Creek ran from Lake Cowan's dam straight into that, and then so there was muskie and bass in there as well. You know what I mean? So I figured, why come all the way out here for nothing? So I decided to go with him. Well, we parked the truck when we get there. He had a little light blue Ford Ranger, and we're still out in the middle of nowhere, up in northeastern Ohio. Damn well near the penitentiaries up there. We get there, it's about a 500 or 600 yard walk just to get to the main part of the creek to fish, where it's deep enough to fish. And we get back there, and there's this beautiful, I remember it like it was yesterday because of the waterfall. It was like an 8-foot waterfall that come down. So we didn't bring our waders, because we was fishing Lake Cowan. So we usually took our waders and would fish the Miami River and stuff too, in between, days of not hitting lakes, we would hit, the Miami River in certain areas and use the waders. But we didn't bring our waders this day, so we just waded out, waist deep. I'm out in the middle of Todd's Creek, and he's down below me at the rapids. And we got rooster tails on them. We're fishing for white bass, muskie, whatever will hit. And the reason why I wanted to go to I knew the white bass, it was early spring, and the white bass were running through our stretches of the river then. So he's down below me, and I'm casting towards the right, and I'm daydreaming. I'm still kind of hurting, but I'm trying to just kill the pain so we can fish. And I'm in the middle of a daydream, like, almost going out of reality for a split second. And all of a sudden, when I come to, there's a rock flying in from the opposite side of the creek that I'm fishing from the densely forested area and lands right next to me. I watched this rock come in at an elevation of about 8 foot, and then boom, it landed about 2 to 3 feet away from me. Now, simultaneously, I look down the creek, right? And I'm like, hey, why did you throw that rock at me? Now, I don't know why I did that, because the rock came in from a totally different direction from where my best friend was, because he was below me. This comes from beside me to the right. Now, I don't know. I guess that maybe the shock of it all made me say that, because I knew it hadn't directly come from him, but still my response was, hey, bro, why did you throw that rock? He said, Jeff, I didn't throw no rock. You see me down below you, and I've got both my hands, I was reeling my lure in. How would I throw a rock? I wouldn't do that anyway. I brought you here so we could catch fish, not to throw rocks at you, bro. So, I'm just spooked. But I shake it off and continue to fish. Not 3 minutes later, I'm going to make a cast, and another rock comes in from the same spot and hits. I'm watching it come straight in at me, and this one lands closer. It landed so close to me, it kicked the water up and, onto my clothes and my arm, my hands, my shoulders. I look down at Chris immediately. He looks up at me. He's seen that second rock come, and we were gone. We hit that water walking like Moses trying to part the Red Sea. I mean, we were gone. Yeah, we were gone. I was in full-blown PTSD at that moment, because I knew and he knew. When I looked down at him and we made eye contact, and he knew, it confirmed exactly what I was just talking about minutes prior. He put 2 and 2 together himself, like, whoa, that is not normal. Because first off, we both knew what throws rocks out in the middle of nowhere at 7:38ish in the morning on a weekend, out in the middle of the boondocks, in the middle of forested area and cornfields where nobody is. No houses and the houses are miles away. You know what I mean? And the farmer that let us fish there that day wasn't there. He was out of town. And that's the reason why we got permission to go fish there. So we put 2 and 2 together. And I knew when we hit the truck exactly what had happened. But we hit the bank. And, mind you, we're soaking wet because we were wading without our waders. So we were soaked. And we're trying to get up this 65-degree angle bank, and it's sloped at like a 65 or 70-degree angle, like I said. And we're soaking wet so bad, we're so badly soaked that the water is making this bank like a mud wrestling pit. We fought tooth and nail, grinding with our fingernails to get up out of this creek. Because that's how terrified we was. So the run back was, like I said, 500 to 600 yards, and it felt like an eternity. It took us an eternity to get back to the truck. Well, immediately, he's like, throw your poles. So we threw the tackle box and the poles into the back of the truck. We jump in. I jump in the passenger seat. He's in the driver's side, and he's fumbling with the keys. He cannot get these keys to get to the main key, the biggest key, to get it into the ignition. So I grabbed the keys from him and slid the big key right into the ignition, turned it over, and we peeled out of there. He just slammed it down in the drive and did a quick U-turn in the gravel, rocks flying everywhere, and we were gone. And never went back there after that. Never again. Now, we kind of tried to touch base on that a little bit. He's like, what do you think would do that? I'm like, well, bears don't throw rocks, and I don't think there's any black bears known to be in this area anyway, brother. You know what I mean? Like, I just started putting two and two together. Like, couldn't have been a bear. There ain't no bears in this area anyway. Like the
Right.
closest bear I'd ever heard from would be, up towards like out from Lancaster out further and up towards the Great Lakes area. You know what I mean? Like up that way. So, I mean, Morrow, Ohio, out deep towards Lake Cowan area, that area, I knew something was off. So, even when we went night fishing after that, which was quite a long time before we even did any fishing after the fact, we were always super cautious and made sure if we were night fishing, we had a huge fire going just to be on defense, because I was super spooked at that moment. And I was just always cautious. But I started to put two and two together right then and there at that moment, and days on after that fact. Because I worked, and I got married when I was 16, so I worked two jobs as a young man before I even hit 20. And I'd noticed that I always felt like I was being stalked or watched when I was fishing, because I'd always go by myself and be out in the middle of nowhere at a gravel pit, mind you, or somewhere, But I was most of the time by myself fishing, because I had a vehicle, and I would just go by myself. More often than not, I'd go after work, because that'd be the only time I could squeeze it in without the wife knowing it, And that's how I worked over, so she wouldn't even know I fished. That's how deeply I loved the wilderness. I spent over half my life in the woods. Yeah. And first off, the only way you're going to ever get a chance to see one of these things is by sheer coincidence, if you're in the right place at the wrong time in a vehicle, or if you're in the woods as much as we are, Dan. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
You can't not tell me these things don't exist if you've never spent less than 1,000 hours in the woods, because I beg to differ. I know what I've seen, and I can't unsee what I've seen. And, we've got stories of police officers and former sheriffs that are going and finally coming on and telling their stories now about the shit that they've seen, because they no longer work in that field, so they can't. You know what I mean? Like, the days of suppression are over. And that's a weird thing that I wanted to touch base with you with, because something was wild. It went down when I got home yesterday, but we'll talk about it at the end of the show. So like I said, spooked for quite a while after that, but then we got a chance to start going to Tom's. My Uncle Mike comes and gets us on a weekend, and he's like, let's go up to Tom's and fish, but we're going to night fish this time. And we'd never done that ever. It was a pain in the ass to get up to the top of this lake. Now we're in Cincinnati, so we're traveling towards the borderline, the Indiana-Ohio borderline, out west going towards Indiana, and it's right past the state line. There's a little town called Harrison, Ohio, and a little ways past that was Tom's. Now, when you get back to the Tom's driveway, directly behind the Tom's house, there is a small mountain, if you will. It's about 2,500 to 3,000 feet up, but it is on a 90-degree slope. I mean, it's just so drastic to get up to the top of this hill. Like, you couldn't take nothing but the basics. Most of the time when we go fishing, we'd like to drink a little bit or something, but we couldn't even do that going here, because this place was so hard to get up just with your bare hands and no gear, let alone with gear. So we're going up to night fish this time. First time we ever done this. Now, when you get up to the top of Lake 1, there's another lake up above it 100 yards. But everybody's so tired by the time they get to 1, nobody ever tried to even go to Lake 2, because you're winded. When you get to the top to Lake 1, you throw your gear down immediately, and you're sucking breath. You're sucking wind. You know what I mean? Your hands are on your knees, and you're gasping for air, because that's how bad this climb is. And it's late September 28th, I do believe, 1995. I'll never forget it, because I was suppressed. We get up there. The cows are on the left-hand side. They always were in the daytime. But on this night, they would leave us at dark and go around to the right and go up to Lake 2. And I would later find out why. So we get up there and we're fishing. We're tearing these bass up. This lake was small, but it had big fish in it. I guess.
Oh, yeah.
Whoever stocked it, and he, limited fishing from people. So it had big crappie and big, humongous bass and catfish. Like, I was just shocked at the size of the fish for the size of this lake. Like, oh my Lord.
Most private ponds, farm ponds, they've always been known to have the biggest bass, because they don't get a lot of activity as far as people fishing there, so right. They have plenty of time to grow.
Yeah, and the fact that it's on a 90-degree slope, you know what I mean? And it's dense forest, you know what I mean? But I loved the place because he had cows up there, and he said the deer ran rampant, and he liked to hunt, and he always had huge bucks. He'd always landed them, during the season. So we get up there, but we'd never night fish, like I said. Now, when you get up in Lake One, there's a huge ridge off to the left that goes in behind you and wraps back around over towards Lake Two, up above Lake One. And it's thick forest all the way around through there. And then on the right side, it slopes down on like a 70-degree slope, and it takes you straight to the Miami Whitewater River and forest area. And you can see it from Lake One down to the right, but you got to get to the top to Lake One before you can see that slope and see the river down below, a couple thousand feet. But the cows would sometimes go down there because we would be there in the daytime. They would go in the middle of the day, they drink from the lake, and they go down in that shade pocket there because it was a huge pocket of shade there. And then you had the river, like I said, and it was all forest, but a lot of shade for them. And it was really warm that day. It was like an 85-degree day. So the day goes quick because we're killing them, And so time flew by, and next thing you know, it's dark. Well, we're up here, and we're sitting. Now, there's a ridge up above us and another lake, but this lake, and I just put two and two together after all the years of studying and research after the fact, but this lake set in like a bowl type setting. So from that ridge, we were really downwind from anything coming from the left to the right. So about midnight comes, cows take off and they leave, but they go up towards Lake Two. They don't go down the slope to the river. And I'm thinking that's kind of odd. That's weird. That's weird, but maybe it's just because it's night. That's why they're doing that. Maybe that's just their normal routine. Well, about 1 o'clock, you hear something start to come down off the ridge. And I'm thinking it's a deer because it would take a couple steps and stop, like it being methodical and very elusive. And I thought that's got to be a deer. There's, wasn't thinking anything else. Nothing came into my mind. Even after what I'd experienced before, I'm thinking, I'm in a different area, I guess. It was a different mindset. So I'm thinking deer, And about 2 o'clock, we're fishing all at the dam right there, right at the top, at the front part of Lake One. It's me, my Uncle Mike, my dad, and then my Uncle Rocky. We're all side by side. We got a little lantern going, little Coleman lantern, but I've got it halfway turned down because now we're crappie fishing with slip bobbers 4 feet deep. All of a sudden, my Uncle Mike said, "Shut up, everybody. You hear that?" And we weren't being loud anyway. But he was like, all of a sudden, he's like, "Shut up. You guys hear that?" And I'm like, "Well, hold on." I stopped talking to my dad. I'm like, "What is it?" He's like, "You hear it?" And I heard it. And it sounded like it was a baby crying. Like a short, like a baby, just, wah, like something like that. And it kept doing it every 30 to 40 seconds. It would do that. And he said, "Well, go see what that is." And I'm like, "Oh, you want me to go see what that is? Huh?" Wow. So I grabbed my pole because I knew a spot on that left side that I always fish during the day for bass. I figured maybe, I knew it was deep. So I figured maybe there'd be some crappie and some structure down deep. So I figured, well, I'll just take a lantern and go check this out. When I'm over there, I'll hit my spot. I grabbed my pole and I got the lantern and I swing around to the left side of the lake where the cows were because they left past tense. And now on this left side of me that I fished, 3 feet away from the lake is the woods. It's straight woods, forest from there all the way up to the lake too, before anything opens up anymore, And then you have that ridge, and then the Miami Whitewater River basically wraps all the way around everything down below. So I'm walking around the left side of this lake, and I put the light up in front of my spot so I can see where I'm going. I'm trying to find my way to my spot. Well, when I made the turn, I put the light on something squatted down beside, right before you get to my spot. It's squatted down, and it's getting a drink out of the lake with its right arm. But this thing is squatted down, and it's almost as tall as me while it's squatted down.
Oh, wow.
And it knows it's got light on it. As soon as I raise the light and I put eyes on its back, you see the hand raise up slowly out of the lake, and the water is dripping off this thing's hand. As it's turning its head over to the left shoulder to make eye contact with me, and as soon as it does, it starts to growl. The lowest grumbling growl that vibrated my clothes. It vibrated my soul, brother. Like,
wow.
Now, with the lantern light upon the face of this thing, same leathery, worn, weathered look, flat nose, the eyes glue a yellow, not a red, a yellow. There was no smell whatsoever. This layer of hair, half, to me, it looked half hair, half fur. Like it was a mixture of hair and fur, both combined. It wasn't like straight fur or straight hair. It was too hard to explain, but it was in beautiful layers of 3-inch layers.
So
Wasn't
it's
shaggy.
not. So would you say it would almost the hair or the layers were more or less matted, like
No,
maybe?
not matted. No, not like you would think. No, no,
Hmm.
no. Like I said, but the hands and the arms in this thing were huge, and they had the coning of the head, but not immense like an adult would. And this thing wasn't 900 or 100 or 1,000 pounds. This thing was about 550, 600 pounds, about 7.5, 8 foot tall tops. I'd say 7.5, no more. But it wasn't immense, but it was still impressive. But it wasn't,
Hmm.
it was intimidating and impressive, but it wasn't like I, later, I took it to be, it was probably most likely a juvenile, wasn't a full grown one. You know what I mean? Because the coning would have been way more immense than the grown ones you see in pictures. Because I've done research ever since that day happened. I started looking at everything. Magazines and everything you could do. I was on it. Just infatuated with the subject until I would bust loose after the fiance got sick with a life-threatening illness, and she said, "Hey, you need to write about this." Well, so we're locked in eye contact. I look over to the left. This thing has that baby deer held down by the throat with its left hand. And I'm in shock. And I'm like, somebody's playing a prank. Is this a Hollywood movie scene? What is going on? Somebody has got to be messing with us. And this is what I'm thinking, but I'm not saying nothing because I'm in shock. Like I can't even move. And my Uncle Mike, I can hear him saying when I slowly come back to, he's like, "What is it? What do you see? What is it? What do you see?" And I can't speak because I'm shocked. I am hit. I cannot speak a word. I cannot move a muscle. This thing vibrated my soul to the core. I finally break away and I turn to to move left. And as I took the 3 steps to jump off the side of the mountain, I said, "You guys go now." And they hit the ground running with me. And I'm in front and they're behind me. But I raised the light so I can see where we're going because we're on a 90-degree slope running down this mountain. So, if I don't raise this light, we're probably going to die from the fall. I put the light up just for a split second to see where I was going. And I slowed down so quickly that they ran into me. And basically, we all went tumbling down the mountain, hitting trees. Like in the movie Lone Survivor, like where they're coming off that mountain, they're hitting the rocks and the tree. I mean, we're hitting everything on the way down. Like legs are getting bashed, ankles, feet, head, arms. Like I seriously thought one of us would get severely injured, but we walked away with no, a few bruises and a few bumps, but it really shocked me. So after, we're laying there, we're trying to get up, and I remember at this moment I'm feeling like there's more of these things. They're probably right behind us. We're dead. We're gonna die. We're not gonna make it off this mountain. We're gonna die. It was the quickest feeling of dread and impending doom I'd ever felt in my life. I went to get up and they went to get up behind me. We could not get up. We had no use of our legs for like 3 to 5 minutes. None of us could get up to make the run back down the rest of the mountain. But finally we do. We get back up to our feet after minutes of fighting through this terror, and we finally make it down to Thomas Park driveway. And he comes out and he's like, "What is all that racket up there going on?" And my Uncle Mike's like, "That nothing. It's nothing, Tom." And a few minutes later, a neighbor come down that lived up by Lake 2. He said, "What was all that racket up there?" And my Uncle Mike's over talking to Thomas, me, my Uncle Rocky, and my dad. And I'm telling the neighbor what I'd seen. And he called the state sheriff in that area. And the state sheriff come out there about 20 minutes later. But by the time he got there, I'm so emotional and I'm crashing from all this. I'm crying like a baby. I'm emotional. I'm shaking, dry heaving, just going through I guess PTSD is later what we find out. Sheriff shows up and asked me what happened. He asked everybody, and they said, "Well, we didn't see it. He's seen it, but we knew when he took off what to do. We followed right behind him." So I told him what I'd seen and what had happened. He said, "We get this type of call all the time this time of year, and we've been getting them a lot more lately than we have ever before."
Wow.
So that kind of put 2 and 2 together right there for me. And the neighbor kind of shook his head. And then the state trooper says, "You surely the guy don't want me to go up there, do you, sir? because this thing's probably already gone by now, whatever it was. And I said, well, I can assure you it was. There's no doubt about it. It's probably gone. I guess this thing had walked down. We were in that bowl setting. We were downwind from it. It didn't smell us until it was too late. And I put the light on this thing and it realized it was caught and I pissed it off. Most traumatizing experience I ever experienced in my life. And I went through some crazy stuff after, being told by
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can only imagine. And, I'm feeling this as you're sharing this. I mean, everything you're sharing and the details and the expression and everything, every little thing back and forth. I'm feeling it too as you're telling it. Real quick, I wanted to recap this location where you guys were fishing on this private property. Again, this is the first time you guys ever night fished there. This is the same place where you had the rocks thrown. Is that correct?
No, it is not.
Okay,
No,
okay.
Lake Callan and Todd Creek. Todd Creek is up in northeastern Ohio. Tom's Mountain is over on the Ohio-Indiana borderline. Jason Kinsey, I'm sure you know him. He was going to go out there and shoot a documentary with me and do like Searching for Sasquatch 9 or 10, but the money never came through with Amazon, so we kind of put that on hold. Well, he went out there recently and did a shoot anyway, which I'm glad they did, because at least it'll put Indiana on the map. You know what I mean? So shortly after that, like I said, I was suppressed by my dad and uncles. I kept it a secret for years. Finally, when the lady got sick, the fiance got sick and sat down with me, and I let it go. I just started to write after I did a couple interviews with Carrie and Miguel of Sasquatch Theory, and God bless Carrie Arnold, Sasquatch obviously. He's the one that said, let it out, man. Right. Tell the world. The world needs to know. And the world needs to know not only your story, but everybody else's too. So he kind of lit a fire under my ass, Carrie did shortly before he passed away, Just glad I got the chance to meet the guy. He's a legend in his own time. But and Miguel is awesome too. You meet so many great people in this world, but then you also find out their story too. And it's not really too far. The stories are not too far off from one another. And the instances are usually pretty damn spot on. Now check this out. So after I write my first 2 books, I'm decided I'm gonna take a break and go fishing again. I got this all off my chest. I feel like 1,000 pounds have been lifted off my shoulders. So I took a break from writing. I put out my first kids book and then my encounter book, Blessed and Cursed. And I went down to Kentucky with a good buddy of mine who wasn't a believer at the time. But we get down to his mom and dad's, and his brother Jonathan's got a trailer 100 yards away from his mom's and dad's house, way down at Laurel Lake. So we get there, and it's too late to fish that night when we get there. So we wake up and decide we're going to go first thing in the morning. So as we're heading out the first morning, Daniel, we hit 50 yards away, if not 60, from Jonathan's house. There is a deer leg laying right at our feet as we're walking towards my buddy Tim Regal's dad, John's house, John and Judy's. And his deer leg is still perfectly intact, except for you could tell it had been wrung like somebody stuck it through one of them old washing machines and just wrung it until it popped the leg off the socket, out of the socket. You could see the cartilage wrapped so tightly around the leg bone. You could tell it wasn't a coyote and it wasn't gnawed on. You could tell something with opposable thumbs had tore this thing off of this deer's body. You know what I mean? First, Tim's like, it's got to be the dogs. I'm like, well, let's check the leg and see if there's any dog bites on it. If there is any bite marks on it, we'll see the gnawing on the bone from the teeth at the socket, and there was none. So we take a couple pictures of it and we put it on the cooler. Well, we decided to go ahead and go on down to Lake Laurel and fish. But we get down there, we get the boat finally in water about 30 minutes in because they couldn't back the boat in for shit. They couldn't drive. His dad was wear stick bifocals, so he had a hard time backing this boat in that day. But we get out there, all the Playboys are driving, they're speeding down through the alley, the deep channel of the Laurel Lake there. And finally it's quiet for about 30 minutes. And this is what's crazy, because I just put them books out, and all of a sudden after that last boat that went by, we're deep into fishing, everybody's super serious, all of a sudden you hear a snap and a pop. Fresh tree, not a dead one. The pop of a dead one compared to a real live tree. This tree snapped and popped so loud, I thought it jolted my jaw. And when it hit the ground, it sounded like a missile hit the ground. It hit the ground so hard that we actually left the boat surface and we're in the air, all of us. Jonathan, Tim's dad, John, and me. All strategically placed around this boat. We all left into the air, and feet up in air, and we hit. And I'm like, what in the hell was that? And Tim said, I don't know, but I've never heard anything like that happen before. He said, I've never had something like that happen down here or anywhere else for that matter. So we shake that off though, because like I said, we're there to fish. But I'm starting to really think like, man, this deer leg, are they like, at first I thought maybe they was playing a trick on me with the deer leg, but then in this tree snap and pop and they hit the ground, I'm thinking, man, that's 2 signs right off the rip. Like, what is really going on here? So a storm rolls in about 2 hours later while we're back in this cove. Now we're trying to get through this storm and we get lost in the boat. We can't find the boat ramp to park the boat and get out and leave. Tim got us lost, so we're out in this storm on this lake and I'm thinking, we're going to die. We're going to drown. It's wavier than all heck. And, I just thought we were really going to tip over and everybody's going to drown. That lake's probably 80 to 100 foot in some spots too. We finally make it back to the dock. And, the next day we decide to leave and go on home. Well, we get to a place called Bethia, Kentucky. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but it's coming back towards Cincinnati. Bethia, Kentucky, Bethea, okay. Bethia, Kentucky.
I can't say that I have.
Well, I'll tell you, it's basically it's remote forest except for the highway itself. It's forest all to the left, forest all to the right, and then highway straight to the middle. It's like you're in a holler, but it's all highway. And but on the right side, I'm noticing there's a huge construction crew up on the right-hand side, and they've got half this forest tore down. Now we're just cruising because they had the divider set up to where there was only like one lane through on our side, traveling back towards Cincinnati for a few miles. So we're down at creeping speed. And I'm looking to the right, like, wow, they've got that whole forest tore to pieces. There's nothing left. You know how much wilderness has probably been shifted to a different direction? And Tim all of a sudden hits me on my left shoulder and he's jerking me. And I look over and he's like, look, bro, look. And he's going like 3 to 5 miles an hour, bro, tops, right? Every 50 to 70 yards, there's a tree break clean as hell at 6.5 to 7 foot. The opposite side of the highway, Bill, for 100 yards. Like something just went through there and snap, 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 snap. And I'm talking 2.5 to 3 inch diameter pines. Snap, just completely in two. Now, the chances of that being straight line winds from that storm, maybe a 1 or 2, but not 20 on a 100-yard stretch. No way. There's no way in hell. There's just no way in hell. So he became a believer that day, needless to say. And I really didn't put all that together and add it up until after, many years later, when you start to get into everything else, when you get into the mind speak and the zapping and all the other things that we know now, you know what I mean? Back then I was a rookie and I hadn't put 1 and 1 together to make 2, you know what I mean? Let alone to go any further. But then when I did come home, I started heavy into this stuff again, you know what I mean? And now, there are no experts in our field. You know this,
right?
But
absolutely,
and there never will be. But there are some of us who've had experiences, whether they wanted or unwanted. You can't help to unsee what you see. So I can't help but to know what I know, and I also can't help to tell you that if you don't believe in what I'm telling you, not you but others, I could care less because I know what I've seen and I can't unsee it. And the only thing I can tell you by saying to me, hey, I don't believe you, brother. Well, I'll tell you, go take you a small vacation, spend you 1,000 to 2,000 hours in the woods like I have in my life. And I can guarantee you, you'll see one. Or you'll come out of there putting math together and you'll come about with something, put your mind in that direction. Because like I said, it took me over half of my life to experience these things. Now, here's another thing, okay? We know these things are very intelligent, and they know everything there is to know about the area in which they live. It's like we know the areas of the city in which we travel, They know everything about what we know about out here in the city. So, like, when it comes into empathy and all, they know who's empathic. They know pure souls from evil souls. They know good from bad. They know all these things. So, and then for me also, I do highly believe that myself, in my own opinion, this is just my personal opinion, but for me being an identical twin and then losing my brother when we were shortly after birth. It left me a twinless twin, you know what I mean? But I'm not your average individual, you know what I mean? Like, I am loyal as they come. I love beyond all boundaries. Like, I will let you do me dirty several times before I'll put my foot down and disown you. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a lovable individual, and I am highly empathetic towards, other people. And I just think it was just, it wasn't just one set thing that made all this happen. You know what I mean? It was an exceptional set of circumstances opened a door for me to experience what I experienced. And I put all this together now after all these years, But that was the last outing that we ever took. And that was in 2022. And then shortly after that, I lost my mom, my dad, my brother back to back to back within like 8 months' time. And that really hurt me. Yeah. It put me back into the bedroom, and it really messed me up bad. But I come out even better all through. I wrote The Missing Link, The Night the Stars Aligned. Because when I first came out and first did them 2 books, I didn't feel like I did them like they should have been, So I redid and mixed some stuff around. But like with The Missing Link, I kind of put in what the Smithsonian did with their intentions of covering up, them skeletons and stuff that they found and dug and undug and put them at sea to dispose of. Well, I put all that. I did some deep research before I wrote that and put that out. And then I put out The Night the Stars Aligned was just a revised version of Blessed and Cursed, my first book. But I wanted to do it, after having a little bit more knowledge of the writing field. You know what I mean? Like, because I had got so excited about becoming an author, that I think I did the first 2 books too quickly. But now we've worked on quality as we fixed some things with, my publisher, Zombie Media Publishing, and Thomas Markham. He was Bigfoot Researcher of the Year in 2013. That is my publisher.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a good man. Knows everything there is to know about them things.
I have yet to meet Thomas Markham. He's a good friend. I mean, we've only associated basically online, but I have yet to meet him. Yeah.
He's good man.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, and then when you come into this field, it takes a while, but once everybody gets used to it, I know it's a great community. Like, I know, some great people, like you, Thomas, Jason Kinsey, I'm getting ready. Things have kind of escalated for me, and things have opened up to where, a documentary's been thought about doing. Well, not only with me and Jason, but, a couple other people who thought that, hey, you know what, if it don't get done with him, holler back at me. We may go do this, you know what I mean? And
absolutely.
And see what's really going on out there. So doors are starting to open. But for me, man, it's just really I went so deep in with Amazon, and I've written 65 books for this company, and I've not received but $11 worth of royalty payments. And the library in my hometown has bought at least 100 of my books, all different titles. So I know I have way more money than that. But their problem with me is they're saying I have an email discrepancy, and that they're not going to pay me until I fix that situation. See, so I kind of feel like I jumped into being an author way too quick before I knew all the ropes of the trade, and it kind of messed me up when it comes to getting paid for the first few books that I've done with them. So I quit writing for Amazon, and I just strictly write with Thomas now. You know what I mean? So It's been busy as of late. We just put out some kids' books, Seeking the King Cryptid, and then Seeking the King Cryptid 2, The Mad Scramble. We just released that last week. Right before that, we did The Last Hunt 1 and The Last Hunt Pure Instinct. I put my dad and my uncle, God bless their souls, are all gone now, except for my Uncle Rocky. But I put my Uncle Rocky, my Uncle Mike, they're still alive. My dad, my Uncle Jack, and my Papa Luther, they're all 3 gone. So I put them in the book. I basically made that, story about a group of hunters, but the hunters are all my family members. But it's a fictional story. But really, in all honesty, you could really say that it could be both fiction and nonfiction, because really, I wrote the book on the facts that they told me about the stuff that they had seen while they were hunting in Arkansas and West Virginia. You know what I mean? So really, you could go either way with it. So when you read my stuff, it may say fiction, but in all honesty, you could go ahead and say, well, that's just, it's more often than not, is most likely non-fictional. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because it just is what it is. That's the easiest way for me to go about writing my material, because I've written so much so quick. That's just how I have to do this in order to keep flowing and not get that that writer's block, So that has been my experience. Like I said, just lately, doors have been opening, meeting some great people, and bigger and better things to come. Right now. I'm
Oh
working
yeah.
on my first. Right now, I'm working on my first book. That's not a Bigfoot book, but it's about a serial killer who gets put in a lunatic sane asylum for murder. You know what I mean? It's called The Devil in Delaware. But that's going to be like a 500 pager, 80 chapters. It won't be done until probably around December. But I just wanted to take a break from the Bigfoot stuff for a minute, just to get a fresh focus. So
Right.
yeah. But I took a break today, flat out, just because I knew we were going to do this interview, and I was really trying to touch base on. I didn't want to not cover, miss one thing. You know what I mean? So I wanted to cover everything with you.
Oh yeah, you've covered some very awesome stuff. I mean, I again, like I said earlier, I mean, I've been drawn into your story and the details. I mean, like I said, I was definitely feeling it. I mean,
Yeah.
like when I
Very
say feeling it, I was visualizing
Yeah.
what you were saying because, like, I was like almost there with you. You know,
Yeah.
it's like
Well, you have to. You have to. You know what I mean? If you really want to feel it, you have to put, as one tells their story, you just got to open your mind. You got to be open minded and be able to put yourself in their shoes. And if you can do that, all the power to you. You know what I mean? You're one of us. But if
Absolutely.
you can't do it, then I feel bad for you because you're not an open minded individual. You know what I mean? Because
Right.
too many people, and now like I said, with all these sheriffs and ex cops and ex sheriffs coming forth, now that they're retired and they're telling their stories, like, man, just quit, dude. Non-believers just need to stop. Just go experience it for yourself. Go spend some time in the woods. Don't tell a believer they haven't seen what they've seen, or try to, be discrepant, like, oh, you don't know what you've seen. You didn't see me. Man, I seen what I've seen. I just wish you could have been there to see it, because you wouldn't be talking this now. You know what I mean? I've not only experienced this once, I've experienced it twice. And then and then for the third, part of my battle, I would say to someone is, okay, well, put yourself in Morrow, Ohio, out in the middle of nowhere, where there's no bears that are actively known to exist, and no people either. What those rocks to somebody, not once but twice. A 3-pound rock at you, 50, 40, 50 feet into the water. You know what I mean? Bears don't do that. Bears don't throw rocks. So I mean, just knock it off. Like, but I feel like we'll have our day, and it's coming sooner than people think.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We got guys like Doug Hodgesek, Mr. Hodgesek from Monster Quest. He's got a new idea now, new 27 pathway gateway, if you will, to evidence. In Minnesota, he found a new hotspot, and his idea now is to take 27 cameras and put them on this land with no IR, no infrared whatsoever in these lenses, and stick them in peanut butter jars and stack the peanut butter jars out on branches. And he said he's got a few things happen that way, but nothing, perpetual, nothing convincing yet. But now he's putting them in trees and angling them down towards the ground from 30, 40 foot in the air. So that may give us the answers that we need. You know what I mean? Now we know, you and I both know these things are really sensitive to thermal IR, anything of that sort. So that's Doug's new plan, is to get try to get some evidence. As of late, I seen him on an interview the other day.
Well, you know what? That's a good idea, because David Lester, that's on the watching. Him and his wife are watching right now, and they're good friends of mine, also part of my team. They'll be coming camping with me in September, and I tell you what, that's something we might have to try to do, is put our cameras up a little high in the surrounding area. We had deployed cameras out last time. We caught some deer and stuff, whatnot.
Yeah, but you want to go 20 foot and then try to come with like a downgrade with them. Put them up at 20 and set them down at an angle.
Right.
Just get them at least 20. You don't want to go 30, 40, because then somebody could fall and get killed. But at least try to go 15 to 20 with them, and angle them towards the ground, and make sure they're IR. And Doug seems to think, because he was on a buddy of mine show, Blake Bodle. He just started the Mountain Man Explorer Crew podcast.
Okay.
I talked with him a few weeks ago, but thing is Doug was on there right after me, and Doug had stated that, and that's why I wanted everybody to know that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because that's just the new a new phase that Doug's going through, and he thinks it's really going to have some good results. 27 cameras, no IR. He really thinks he's going to see something happen. So I hope, but like even Doug said last week, it's coming. It's coming quicker than people think.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm always trying to think of ideas and different things to try, or there's things I've been trying, or I have tried. I just feel like I just need to do more of them. And be a little bit more persistent on certain things. A lot of people believe that game cameras are not going to work.
No.
I just,
No.
I personally disagree to a certain extent because, like you said earlier too, it's like it's almost got to be at the right moment, at the right,
Yeah, you catch one slipping. You know what I mean? You catch one slipping. See, like that night would have probably never happened ever if we'd been up there in the daytime. But at the nighttime, out in the middle of nowhere, where nobody had ever night fished ever. No, and I forgot to tell you this part. Now, after Tom had found out the fact, before we left that night, he said, that struck me as on a couple weeks ago before you all come up here to night fish. I found a couple big buck up there as I was going up to feed the cows and check on them with their necks broken, their face laying on their backs, but their heads twisted around their neck snap. And that was really like, but because they just put two and two together for me. I know what I'd seen that had the little baby deer held down. It wasn't a big boy, it was a baby deer is what it had. It had hunted this thing methodically. But we caught it because we'd been somewhere where nobody had ever been at night. 4 a.m., probably 3 or 4 a.m. is when I walked around up on this thing. Because I remember when we got down to the car and we finally left, it was closer towards 4:45-ish when we pulled that parking lot. You know what I mean? So that right there confirmed it for me, like, it is what it is. You've seen what you've seen, and then they tried to suppress that for me for years. And I let them, you know what I mean? And I let them just because they always fought with me and they was always rough with me when I was young. But I'm glad looking back on it now because by them doing that, they made me tough. They made me who I am today. You know what I mean? So I'm glad that they did me the way that they did me, but I just wish they wouldn't have suppressed me and everything that they did like they had,
I guess
but life too,
Right. On a positive note too, if you look at it this way, that they kept you quiet at a young age. I mean, from talking about it, I mean, it might have saved you ridicule at a young age because that can be rough on anybody.
Oh yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I drank for years. I became an alcoholic. I drank heavy for 20 years. And then when I put that down, I would pick up something else. I picked up a drug, and then put that down, pick up another drug. Like I struggled for years on end after all that with everything you could possibly think of, and then finally I woke up one day after all my friends were dying around me. And I said, hey, you know what? You don't want to be statistic. It's time to get sober, But then soon after I did, we lost my brother, my little brother, God bless him. He died from the one thing that he fought tooth and nail to get me off of. We lost him to it. And nobody had a clue that he had been struggling with it, So, like, for me, I feel like if everything just happened in a perfect sequence for it to turn out the way that it did, it's God's plan. You just got to roll with it. And so I have. That's what I've been doing. Just roll with the punches, and everything will come into fruition at the end, of the story. So that's the way I roll anymore. Just go with the flow and let it go. What happens will happen. So you just can't stress things. And you can't stress because people don't want to believe what you say. I could care less about ridicule. That's why I'm so glad that who raised me, because I could care less about ridicule.
Right.
It doesn't bother me a bit.
Jeff, I tell you what, we're going to take about a 3-minute break real quick. And when we come back, I'm going to go ahead and ask a trivia question. And then while we're waiting on responses, whatever, we'll continue on with anything else that you want to share. We'll touch base on your books again, too, real quick. So, for everybody watching and listening, we're going to take roughly about a 3-minute break. And we'll be back shortly, guys. And I'm going to play my short little clips again. And then we'll go from there. We'll see you guys back soon.
You're good, brother.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Bigfoot Zone, ECBRO. This show is a collection of tales by individuals who have had personal sightings, encounters, and interactions with these elusive creatures. Stories from people of many ages and from many backgrounds. The events in these stories have taken place in several states. As a listener reviews these accounts, the integrity, details, and sincerity of each story will be evident. And if you need a little encouragement in confirming what you already believe, or perhaps what you experienced personally, this podcast is for you. So ladies and gentlemen, sit back and relax, and be sure to share this around and give our YouTube channel a like. Stay tuned.
All right, guys, here we are. We're back. Thank you guys for sitting tight and being patient. So, tonight's trivial question. I haven't done this in a long time, but I want to start doing this again. I think it'll be fun. But you will have a chance to win 2 tickets to the 2024 ECBRO Virginia Bigfoot Conference happening June 24th. June 14th and 15th. Forgive me. Let me post that up there real quick. So you could definitely mark your calendars for this event right here. The ECBRO Virginia Bigfoot Conference 2024, June 14th and the 15th. So yes, it's all about Bigfoot, paranormal, cryptids, and the unknown. Vendors, we'll have guest speakers, food and more, et cetera, in Wares Cave, Virginia at the Wares Cave Community Center. We do have confirmed guest speakers already. We have not started announcing them quite yet, but we will be soon. Because this weekend, I actually have I think we're going to have a virtual meeting with the committee team. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, one other thing I want to throw out there real quick that's happening, next weekend, happening in Ellisburg, Pennsylvania, is the Central PA Bigfoot and Cryptid Festival happening August 12th, 2023 on Memorial Park Avenue. The area is called All Home Days. The event is taking place from 9 to 5. This is going to be a first-time annual event, and it's been getting huge coverage. Several news networks and newspapers have been covering this event. Radio stations have been broadcasting and advertising and promoting this. It's been shared and promoted all over social media. If you're in the area or if you're a traveler to these events, I definitely encourage you to come on out. Your host, Daniel Benoit, I'm actually one of the guest speakers for this event. So I encourage you to come check it out. Again, this is going to have a good variety of vendors, food trucks, and the guest speakers themselves. So it's going to be a fun event. I don't know if you guys can see that, but there's a little the speaker flyer right there. So with enough of my rambling on, tonight's question, I can make this into a 2-part question. So, but the question is, when did cryptozoology begin, or when was it founded? So again, the question is, when did cryptozoology begin, or when was it started? The other question is, I'll leave that alone, maybe for another time. It's a two-part question, but I'll leave it to a one-part question. So one more time, the question is, when did cryptozoology begin, and when did it start? I will wait and watch the live chat for the first correct response on the live chat. First one to throw in the correct response will win a set of tickets to next year's event.
Absolutely.
So, um, so I'm going to be watching the live chat, but while we're doing that, yeah, your book that you wrote based off your encounter, again, that is titled "Blessed and Cursed." Is that correct?
Correct. Blessed and Cursed. And then I also did a revised version, which I called "The Night the Stars Aligned." It's a little bit better written, a little longer,
Okay.
So you can get one, or I really suggest you get them both. I mean, my books are probably fairly cheap. So like I said, so Blessed and Cursed, The Night Stars Align, and then a really good one is The Missing Link. Me and Thomas, I did some heavy research on that and found and uncovered some really wild stuff. And there is total truth to it, So we decided to go ahead and put it in there. But the last book that we didn't release is because he felt it was just a little bit too political. So I didn't release it. But like I said, Blessed and Cursed, The Night the Stars Aligned, and then The Missing Link, 3 great books. I touched base with all the encounters, and then even some other things that I, added to math up over the years, and kind of felt like they were incidents or encounters of themselves too. So you get a few surprises in each one of the books because everything's as it all slowly unfolded, you start to remember a few more things out of each story that you'd missed once before. So and really, like I said, I hadn't been given a lot of time. Like once I had given my interviews, people were like, hey, you need to write these stories, you need to let the people hear this. And so I kind of just jumped in the deep end, before I even got my P's and Q's back together, after years of school in high school. I had to learn how to do the grammatical part and the proper punctuation. So you can tell when my books, from when I first began to now, you'll see how great. I mean, I think I've impressed immensely. You know what I mean? But you can definitely see me go from rookie to seasoned veteran.
Right.
throughout the books. So, and then there for a moment there was a virus or something that got swung into his computer system, and we had a few errors going on in a few of the books, and people were complaining about it. So me and Thomas, sat down and had to talk about it, and then so we developed a new system that we put together, amongst each other, and now that the system's in place, the books have been proven greatly in quality. You know what I mean? There are no errors.
Okay.
Everything's thoroughly combed through with a fine-tooth comb before we release it. I touch it, then he touches it and edits it. Then Leo Frank, our editor and publisher and marketing director, he will touch it and look too and give it a third glance to see if there are any errors. So we're really trying to improve overall in just quality assurance alone. But it's getting way better. So the books are good books. Everybody seems to like them. I'm not very awesome about it yet. That I just, like I said, you can tell that when I first started to now, you'll see the difference in my writing.
Oh yeah, I think that's with every author, even the seasoned authors. So
yeah, we all go through that phase. You know what I mean? And you got to think too. You got another thing for me though is I was just coming face to face with my traumas and facing my fears, and then just let it out and was beginning to heal before I, and then boom, write books, and become an author. Like I was still dealing with my own trauma and PTSD from the situations that I experienced. And then boom, I was writing before I was well even ready to start writing, in all honesty. But I just went with it. The door was open, so I jumped through it before it closed, like anybody would, So I just decided to make the move because it was kind of like make it now or never make it. So I made it, But then, life happens and you experience death, but you don't experience death like I did, unfortunately. you know, and it's sad because, no one can deal with death of a loved one, but when you experience it as quickly as we did, it traumatized my whole family. We're still, we lost him in 2022, and we're just now heading into 2024, and we're still, everybody in my family struggles with it. I mean, to lose your brother and your mother and your father in 8 months is tough. It's really tough. So I think I've come through a lot to be where I am at now. I've faced a lot of challenging situations to be where I'm at now.
Oh yeah,
I'm grateful, and I feel as if I'm blessed as well. And it's kind of why gave me the idea to put that spin on the first one. Blessed and cursed. Blessed by deciding, and also cursed by it too. I felt at times. Because often they say after you see one, you'll experience a lot of bad stuff in your life. I mean, that's the old native wise tale. Certainly happened for me. So I can't say it's a wise tale, because as soon as I seen one, it was all bad from that until I let my story be told, and then things kind of got better.
Oh
so,
yeah.
Kind of a blessing and a cursing mixed.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Being blessed and cursed on this, I would say it's definitely. It sounds like it's also a learning experience, all in the same time here.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, yeah. I mean, looking back at the situations, the details that you experienced, I mean, sometimes you could pull a lot out of that too, by as far as learning that towards putting that towards the research. It gets you to question certain things, like, okay, what were they doing there? What are hey, you witnessed it with a deer, that basically confirms their food, part of their food source.
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it.
I mean, these fishing holes that you got that you were at, where you had your experiences. I mean, those are also possible feeding grounds. I mean, it's where they go to feed, and
Absolutely. Just like in Kentucky, deer leg out in the middle of the field, out in the middle of nowhere, in between two houses. But directly by the wilderness. But just only hundreds of yards away from it. Like it was almost as if it was a sign. You're like, hey, almost as if it was some kind of like mind speaking going on. You know what I mean? Like, I almost got the feeling at a point in time that like, wow, had they had these things have known about my travel and like, I mean, it just makes you just think of so many different levels. Like it's insane, the things that you can open up when you sit down and talk about this, with other people, open-minded people. That is, there's so many closed-minded peoples in this world today. It's a damn shame. And I choose my friends wisely because of that. I really do.
Another thing I honestly believe, and I'm saying this not just for myself, but anyone else that has ever had experiences that laid eyes on them, and and whatever it may have been, I believe it really brings you more in tune with your surroundings. It makes you more alert. I mean, your senses really become heightened. Yeah, I mean,
they do, and I can tell. Trust me. I mean, man. And for me, I mean, here's the kicker. Me being an identical twin, I was born with some of that anyway. So it's been heightened for me, like it is what it is, and being a twin, you're given that extra set of senses, but then after you see what you see, my senses have been like put up on a different level compared to everybody else, I was born with, I was born with
turning that volume up.
Yeah, it's like turning the volume up, so to speak. Yeah, basically you could, So I am really cautious about the trips that are made, and I give a lot of thought to them before I make them, especially when it comes to making trips that are going to be in woods or whatsoever. Because we were just talking about, me and my nephew upstairs, Scott Michael. We were talking about maybe doing a canoe trip, and I'm like, well, get with me a few days beforehand so we can check on the weather, the heat, the river temperature, and the depth of the water. I don't want to be stuck out in the woods any longer than need be. You know what I mean? Like, what are we doing? Are we doing a 2 mile or a 5 mile? Like, you just got to be extra careful, especially in the world post-COVID. People are just insane anymore,
Right.
No place is really safe, let alone, with human beings around, let alone something else,
Yeah.
So yeah,
Absolutely.
the world has turned for the worst. But 2024 should bring better things. That's what we're hoping.
Ab- oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, I want to recap real quick. I have not seen not one response regarding the question. I will say
No,
this: if it helps anybody out, we're not looking for an exact time frame. If that helps out, but the question again is: when did cryptozoology begin, or when was it founded? Basically, the same question. When was cryptozoology founded? Again, not looking for an exact date. There's
right.
not so. We'll give you guys another 5 minutes on that,
Yeah,
and
Google it.
and
Somebody
and
Google
so, but yeah. So you do travel and get out. I mean, have you traveled recently? As far as going out of
it.
state or anything?
Nope,
No.
not since 2022. No. After I released my last book, I had some. I began to have some problems with my legs and feet, circulation wise.
Mm.
And they're not saying diabetes, but they're saying borderline. But I do have circulation issues, and they got me on some blood thinners, so I got to like be really careful. You know.
Oh yeah.
So I have to really be cautious. Like on blood thinners, you get out there and get cut and wood, you can bleed to death before you make it anywhere. So I have to
Right.
really be like if I have to make plans, I have to really make plans. Like and stop taking my medicine a couple of days before we rock and roll. You know what I mean? So it gives my
Right.
blood a chance to thicken up. Yeah, because like it just my feet and legs are always ice cold, and I can either they're tingling or I can't feel them. Like that's how limited the blood flow is. So it's kind of got me hemmed up. But just I take this time to write, and I can concentrate better and focus on the writing, and that's when it's often better than it's ever been. You know what I mean? So I just take
Yeah.
it for what it is. To a double-edged sword. Kind of kills me on the expeditions out going anywhere outside, but at least I can still be constructive on the inside. So
Right.
get ready to come out. I'm getting ready after this. I finish this next book. I will be doing the Lost Hunt 3, the lost. Let's see. There's the last hunt period thing, and it'll be the last hunt, the Lost Trail. Will be the third and final book of that series, and it's going to be a doozy. I'm gonna make the
Okay.
ending so brutal people will be traumatized. But that's gonna be a good book.
Yeah. Very cool. And for anyone that's interested in checking out and buying your books, again, they could all be found on Amazon, right?
Oh yeah, Barnes and Noble, Joseph Beth Booksellers, Thrift Books, Books a Million, Diamox Books in Australia. They're worldwide. You can go anywhere and get them, and they're cheap. $8.99. And there's a lot of really awesome material in there. I mean, and most of my stories are based on true stories.
Hmm.
My kids' books are just exactly what they are. Kids' books, they're fictional. But most of my adult stuff is nonfiction. It is the truth. Whether you like it or not, but it is what it is.
Right.
You see what you see, you can't unsee what you see. And so I finally decided to put it on paper, and I did. And boy, you'd be shocked, like I said, but in the beginning when all these things happen to you, you're so traumatized. When you go back through, as I did, I realized I'd left out key pieces of things that happened as they, went down. But you're so traumatized, and by the moment, you often don't remember things until way after you come clean with them.
Oh yeah.
Then you realize, hey, I missed this little thing out. I missed this little thing out. You know what I mean? And I don't want to miss anything and leave one thing out, because I feel like that may be something that may lead to something or may help someone in some way. So
Absolutely. And
so I'm just
real
gonna
quick,
yeah, go ahead.
oh yeah, real quick, I do want to throw it out there. I have it. I have Melissa's response up on the screen. Um, her response is 1955,
She's
and I'm
close.
gonna yeah, and I'm gonna count that as the correct response because let me put up there. I'll show you guys what I have, and for those who could view this right there in the highlight right there. It was
Yeah,
originally founded in the 1950s by zoologists Bernard Hevelman and Ivan T. Sanderson.
yeah,
So the
absolutely.
1950s, she pinpointed 1955. It is in the 1950s. So Melissa Lester, that is the correct response. I'll give that to you. So congratulations, Melissa, on that.
Right on.
So
That's a good
as
little
you
gift.
see, right, and I was going to turn this into a two-part question with naming the two individuals, but I decided to leave that out of there. So,
Yeah.
so
Give them to her. Give her the
absolutely,
tickets. Give her the tickets, Daniel.
yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, Melissa, you
She's
got
close.
that. So, yep,
Oh, she's close.
very
Close enough.
good.
Close enough.
Yeah.
What do you think with all the work that you've done? I mean, I'll give you mine. I believe I believe these things are a human hybrid. I don't believe they're an ape, and I don't believe they're human. I believe that they're a hybrid forming human. I don't believe that they're specifically one thing or the other. You know what I mean? I believe that they are a hybrid form of human. What do you think?
Well, in my honest opinion, I've actually always kind of swayed away from that. Although I talk and present that in my presentations when I go to speak.
Yeah.
I personally, I mean, again, I know there's a large community out there with a large mixture of different theories and thoughts and
Absolutely.
beliefs.
Right.
But I mean, I tend to believe what you said that you don't believe in. As far as now, I'm not saying they're an ape like a gorilla or an ape like a chimpanzee,
Right.
but I believe they are some kind of unclassified primate.
Right.
And now
Right.
the reason I say that is because
You
some
have good
people say,
reason.
well, right, some people say, well, they're not a human, and no. Well, yes, some say they're not human, but also
Yeah.
some say they're not a primate.
Right.
Well, but then again,
More
I was like,
extraterrestrial. Right.
right, scientifically speaking, according to science, we're primates. So,
Right. Absolutely.
right, I mean, we're human primates, and then you have your non-human primates. So, I mean,
Right.
like you said
That's a
human
good one.
hybrid. Could that
Yeah.
human hybrid be in between
The
that? I
primate.
mean,
Yeah. Absolutely. That's
so
my belief. Yeah. Yeah. That's
right,
exactly what I was going to say. That's just one question I had that I wanted to just pick your brain over. You know what I mean? During this sit down,
right,
because that I get asked that question every time before before the interview's over, is what do I personally believe? So I just wanted to pick your brain
right.
on that one. And you
Oh yeah.
think exactly as I do. Like, you know what I mean? We know
I
what's
mean,
out there. You know, as far as
I have.
eDNA and Dr. What's her name? Dr. Maria Mayer from Expedition
Oh yeah, yeah.
Bigfoot. Yeah. They
Right.
did have the eDNA of the chip cross hybrid that was found in the Kentucky area when they were down there shooting down there. So that's why I wanted to ask you that. You know what I mean?
Right. I'm glad you brought that up. As far as the show itself,
Yeah.
I really respect that show big time,
Yeah. I do too.
and I think it's because they do practice and use science. They
Yeah.
are the eDNA, which is, I mean, a lot of people don't think about trying that or using that.
Right.
I
Why
was
not?
actually, yeah,
You know?
I was presented with that idea or theory some years ago from a good friend of mine. He is a professor from North Carolina State University who actually teaches a class about Bigfoot.
Right on.
And he's involved with a project that involved the late Dr. John Bindernagel,
Yeah.
wildlife biologist, and other primatologists. And
Right.
but this guy, he's been out in the field with me. He's come up to Virginia and we've explored and everything. But one of the things he told me, he says, Daniel, he says, when you come across tracks, he says, you want to start collecting samples, collect samples of the track itself.
Right.
Take a soil sample
Absolutely.
of the sample, and then he explained to me what other techniques to go along with that.
Yep.
The thing
It
is,
almost sounds like Dr. Jeff Meldrum's way. You know?
yeah, right. Actually, I never heard of his technique on that, but yeah, basically, it all comes down to eDNA. I mean,
Yeah,
so
eDNA is very important.
yep,
You know,
yep.
it could be the one link to break us all wide open. It really could be. And Dr. Melba Ketchum, her project she had going on down there in Texas. That was a good one. And they were trying to do eDNA along the way. And then they even had come up with the idea of grinding glass up and then setting food out on plates. And then as this clan would eat from that plate, they would, which is kind of cruel, it sounds, but to get the species proven, you got to do what you got to do. But grind up glass, put it in little shards of glass in the food, let them eat it. And then as they eat, they bleed. And then they go to wipe their hands on the plate and blood would get on the plate. And that's how they got the blood samples from that project. Dr. Melton's genome project. That's how they got the blood samples for that. But then they said they cross-contaminated them and then handed them. They mishandled everything. Like this, science is not going to. We have to have definitive proof before they even break this open. It's sad.
I that part I can't recall I've ever heard that part of that thing. What you just described.
Yeah, Dr. Melba Ketchum. Check it out sometime, brother. Dr. Melba Ketchum's Genome Project. South Texas is where they did it. It's on Google, YouTube.
Oh, yeah, I know all about Melba Ketchum, but that particular thing to collect DNA that way, I never heard.
DNA, blood, that's how they got their blood DNA evidence. Was grinding up glass, and it does sound cruel and unusual, like it's cruel and unusual punishment. But if it's what it's needed to prove existence, and we need to do it. I just wanted to throw that out there to you because of where you're from. The area that you're at. I know they are thicker down there in clans than they are where I'm at. You know what I mean? So you might want to even use that technique. That's a really good technique if you think about it.
Well, there's one technique I remember on an old documentary. I remember seeing when they went to visit that cabin up in Alaska. Where they had large rocks thrown on the roof.
Absolutely, yeah. That's Doug. How'd you say? Yeah.
That's right. Well, it was right.
Yeah.
And they actually showed almost like the shape of the blood. I mean, they outlined on the nail board that there was like a large, giant footprint there. So
yes, absolutely. And then they even found prints up there that they casted with the metatarsal break halfway through the foot. Like 3/4 of the way down. So, like, they were onto something there, They were definitely at the right place at the right time. And that's when Doug had Dr. Jeff Meldrum up there with him. I believe he was there. And his son, too, which him and his son, they do a podcast, pretty Untold Radio. That's pretty good one, too. I watched several of them. But Doug is the man, dude. He is the guru gadget genius, brother. Like, you have any ideas or you want somebody to pitch ideas your way, as long as you're willing to sit down with the man and ask him what you could do to possibly help prove, he will sit down and give you thousands of ways to do this. He is so smart, brother. He's intelligent when it comes to this field.
I had an opportunity where I was actually invited firsthand by I don't know if you know Stephen Major from Washington State. Stephen Major invited me to go on a 10-day camping trip that was going to be filmed. It was an extreme Bigfoot expedition that involved Doug Hychek, Russell Accord. I think Ken Gerhard was part of it.
Good.
And there was one other gentleman. I can't remember the other one, but I was invited to go along with that. That was going to take place back in May, but I had to turn it down. I actually had the time off approved from work because I didn't have no accrued paid time off yet at that time. But my boss gave me the okay to take those days off because they were going to fly me out there to British Columbia and to be a part of all this. The only reason I had to turn this down is because I wasn't going to get paid to do it. I mean, they were going to cover my flight and all my gear and all that. But I would have lost 2 weeks of income, which I can't afford to do.
No, who can? No way. Boy, that was a lifetime opportunity, though. You know what? That's a good trip, boy. But
the way I look at it, right. I mean, I look at it like, if it's really meant for me to be a part of something like that, the opportunity will come again. So
Right on.
I
That's
I just had to make a wise decision and be patient about it. But I mean, yeah,
absolutely
that would have been an excellent opportunity to be a part of something like that. But
right.
but yeah,
You caught
sadly, I
smart.
was I was kicking myself in the butt. But I mean, I had no choice. I had to make that decision not to go along. So,
Right.
but
Your door, there'll be another
so
door. For one door that closes, there's always another that opens, right? So
but
that's how
yeah,
we
I
got to
mean,
look at it.
Stephen Major brought me several months ago. He flew me out to Washington State to do a TV show, which I thought was awesome. I mean, for one thing, first time ever flying, first time ever out to the West Coast. But my
Right
stay
on.
wasn't long because they flew me out on a Tuesday. We did the show Wednesday morning, and he showed me around the general area. And then, of course, Thursday I had to come back home to the East Coast. But
Right.
I mean, I enjoyed my time out there. I wish I could have stayed out there longer, but I just didn't have enough time to do so. So
Right. That's still a good
so
trip, though, buddy. That's still a good trip,
yeah,
man. For real.
it
Go to the West
it was
Coast,
exciting.
be part of
Yeah,
a, like I did a documentary not long ago. I mean, it's exciting to do that because then you feel appreciated a little bit more about things that have experienced, and then also the things that you brought with you as you stepped into the door of what we do. It
oh
feels
yeah,
like it's almost a baptism by fire, if you may. You know what I mean? Like the documentary, the first one I ever did was with Scott Carpenter, the legend, and then
hmm
Robin Haynes McCrae, who does the Searching for Sasquatch 1 through 9 with Jason Kinsey. You know, uh, so I got to do my first documentary with them two, so it was great. I'm only on the last 10 minutes, but you know, Linda Eastburn, who does all these documentaries, she's been phenomenal and a phenomenal addition to this field that we're in. She does
oh
so many
yeah,
documentaries. It's crazy. It's almost like every other day she's putting a documentary out. She's just amazing. So she's been a great addition. But yeah, it was kind of refreshing to be able to switch back and do something different from just writing. So my first
yeah.
documentary was like baptism by fire. You get to go on and film with, documentary with Scott Carpenter. The man. I always looked up to him. Uh, he's been around forever. He's the one who invented the camera on the back of the backpack. That Russell Cord uses. So
hmm
it's a good idea there too.
Oh yeah,
You
very
know,
cool.
so absolutely. So Scott was the man. So I felt privileged to do a documentary with him and Robin Both. She's an amazing woman. Like I said, she was in that Sasquatch Searching for Sasquatch 7 or 8 with Jason Kinsey. And Thomas also, my boss, Thomas Markham, he edits his films, I believe, before they come out. So Jason's part of the
Yeah,
team too over there at Zombie Media in some way,
very
shape, or
awesome.
form. You know what I mean? So, like I said, I've met a lot of great people, since I've come through with my traumatizing ordeal. uh,
Absolutely.
it just feels good to tell it, get it over, get it out of my. I feel so much lighter. My soul don't feel so heavy no more. I'm not hiding
Right.
nothing. I'm not going to go to my grave with any secrets when I go. Everything is as it is. You know what I mean? Everything's been told. I will not leave, and there will not be nothing untold of me when I go to my grave. All my secrets will be revealed. You know what I mean? So I'm leaving here with a cleansed soul before. You know what I mean? So I'm good. I'm just gonna keep writing, pushing, and see where that takes me. You know what I mean? If that takes me uh, up the road to another door where I may become part of another documentary or something, or speaker, if you will, whatever. You know what I mean? I'm just going to wait and see as it flourishes and unfolds. That's my new motto on everything. It's been
Absolutely.
good. Yeah, it's been great. Been a great
Yeah.
interview. You're a great interviewer.
Well, I try. I mean, you
Yeah,
were
you
a
just don't
great.
sit there and let everybody talk the whole time. At least you're talking too. It's good when you interact with, and because I notice 9 out of 10 times if a guy interviews and he doesn't stop through the segue and ask questions, it's just a flat interview. So the last two I've done were great. You and then Blake Bodle, he kind of stopped in between and asked a question here and there, and then ran a commercial, and then you do the giveaway, which is all that much, even much more better. At least you're offering something for your watchers out there. Well, that's a good gift though. 2 tickets,
Well,
not 1, 2.
right. Well, it's funny that you said all that because I've actually had complaints in the past that I talk too much during the podcast and not let the guests talk too much. I mean, we want the guests to talk a lot. Yeah, I mean, we want the guests to talk a lot, to share what they know, because the show is about the guests and for the guests, and the viewers are there to listen to the guests, I mean, they can hear me talk and ramble on anytime.
No, that's true. That's true. But a good interviewer will stop and ask at least 3 decent questions. You know what I mean? And you had done that. So, I mean, it's just been a great interview. I mean, not only have you let me flow, you almost know when to stop and step in, So interviewing somebody is not that easy. It's not as easy as everybody thinks. And let me tell you something. It's not that easy being an author either. It's definitely not easy getting paid once you write your books too. Sometimes I doubt I'll probably ever get paid from them people. But you know what? I don't even care about it anymore. It's out there. Everything I know is out there. The people of the world are reading it, and that's all I care about. Really.
Right.
I can go dead. I can go to my grave dead and broke. I don't give a shit. Hey, I'm already leaving here a legend anyway. I've left my legacy behind. It's in my books. So not only have I written for the kids of the world, I've written for the adults too, and teens alike. So I've done my
yeah.
I could die tomorrow. I'm good. Yeah, I could die tomorrow. I'm good. I'm golden.
Yeah. Well, there was something. Hold on, I almost lost my train of thought there because I was reading something there. Well, you real quick, you were talking about interviews. I'll tell you one thing that's kind of a challenge when it comes to interviews is asking the right questions when you're interviewing an eyewitness.
Absolutely. Yep.
Because you want the eyewitness to share everything they got, and you'll listen to all the details. You're making notes of them, and then you're trying to make sure they're not leaving nothing out. But I've met up with several eyewitnesses over the years. Just here in Virginia alone.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, police officers. I've actually had firsthand account from a police officer here in Virginia.
Yeah.
His sighting took place while he was on night patrol.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
On night patrol. Could you imagine? Well, at least he was armed.
Well, yeah. Oh, he was in his vehicle too, so yeah.
That's going to help you anyway, unless you got an elephant gun. You know what I mean? Then it's going to take 2 shots from that to even do any damage. Because these things are so immense and they're so huge. It's outlandish how big these things are. The length of the arms, the length of the legs, the muscular build of these things. It was insane. Like I just knew, like, if you don't run, something was telling me at that minute, if you don't run now and jump off this mountain, you're going to die. Like, and I went. Like, this thing locked eyes with me and basically was saying, this is mine. You can't have it. You better go. That's kind of the sense I got. So I went. And I went as fast as possible. When I finally broke free. I almost felt like it was saying that to me without speaking it. You know what I mean? Like, this is mine and you better go. You done pissed me off. I'm getting a drink of water. I just hunted this thing down. I'm thirsty. And now you're going to try to take this from me? That's kind of like the sense I got. Like, because I caught it getting a drink of water. It had the deer with its left hand. And it was looking at me. And then it was glancing with its eyes over towards the wood like it wanted to go. But it was like a deer caught in headlights. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because it hadn't expected anybody to be there because we'd never night fished there, nor had anyone else. Insane. And then being in that bowl downwind, it had no clue we were even there because we were being so quiet. And I had the light on the lantern down almost to nil. You know what I mean? I had to raise the light in order to see the eye shine that came yet in the yellow with light. You know what I mean? So I don't know what it would have been in the dark, maybe red. I don't know. Who's to say? I don't know. But with the yellow of the light and the white of the light on it, as it was looking at me, eye to eye, was yellow, a yellowish. And you could see the black pupils, but it was yellow. It wasn't a orangish or a reddish. It was yellow eye shine. Like, and my nephew did it the other day. My nephew did it the other day. His dog was in here, and the lighting was this perfect. and her eyes were yellow. And I'm like, whoa, that is, it kind of like, I almost had a flashback. I mean, basically I did. And I was like, Scotty, whoa, hold on. He's like, what? I said, real, the yellow in her eyes, you see that? He said, yes, Wick. I said, that's what I seen up on top of the mountain. That same exact color. It kind of hit me a little bit right there in the moment. And he was like, whoa, really? He's like, wow, I see that too. Her in a perfectly, just a beautiful canary yellow was the color when the light hits it properly. You know what I mean? It just, you're in shock. It's a Hollywood movie scene. It's a prank. It's anything other than what you're seeing is what you tell yourself. You know what I mean?
Well, I wanted to collaborate on that real quick too. 'Cause I don't know if you recall the comment I commented under one of your book covers that you had posted online with a Bigfoot behind the Bigfoot silhouette behind that had the yellow eyes in the picture.
Yeah.
Back in 2014, 6 of us, the Bigfoot experience that we encountered, there were 3 of them, and all 3 of them had the same yellowish color eyes.
See? See what I'm saying? So right there. Okay, so if you've seen it and I've seen it and we both seen the same color and we each know that the other is not lying, correct? Correct. Because I believe you 100%.
Now, a lot of people have claimed to see, well,
I'm sure they do. I'm sure they do. In the dark, with no light.
Well, yeah. Right. A lot of people said they see red eye shine, but
they're in the dark. 9 out of 10 of them are in the dark, with no light. That's why.
Right.
In my opinion.
Well, a lot of the red eye shine that they claim they see without seeing a figure, a lot of them believe it's Bigfoot. But my experience with nature and wildlife, especially here in Virginia, every black bear that I've ever seen at night had red eyes, based off the reflection of light.
Right. See, I've never seen one, and I've never seen one in the night.
Right.
I've seen one in Lancaster, Ohio, in the daytime, and it was just black and white eyes. You know what I mean? I've never seen a black bear in the dark, so I wouldn't know. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's what Thomas said to me. He said, before I signed the contract that day, he said, so it really had yellow eyes. I said, yes, Thomas. When I had the lantern on its eyes and the light from the lantern hit its eyes, they were yellow. They weren't orange. They weren't yellowish orange or red. They were yellow. He said, wow, unbelievable. I believe you, brother, he said, but I just had to know that. He said, go ahead and sign your contract. I've never swayed from it. I know what I seen, and they were a huge, immense set of yellow eyes. And each eye was probably the 3 of mine. You know what I mean? Each eye was 3 of mine. Like, unbelievable. And then 550 to 600 pounds, 7.5 foot, 5 foot squatted down. Like, I was like, whoa, what are you into? As I'm walking up on it, and I'm like, oh my God, this is a prank. Somebody messing with me. Is that the neighbor messing with me, playing a prank? Like, and it wasn't none of that. Because then years later, my dad said, I knew, I've seen what you've seen. That's why I ran when you said run. I knew. I vaguely seen what you seen. I didn't see it as good as you because you were right up on the damn thing. You know what I mean? But then my dad, shortly after that, my dad had a stroke and he died. But my Uncle Mike, he's kind of like, he's just always been that big, stubborn, bullheaded sucker. And it's always his way or the highway. And he would never really give you the definitive answer. You know what I mean? But I know he's seen what I've seen because if not, he wouldn't have ran. He wouldn't have took and jumped off the side of the mountain either. You know what I mean? And my Uncle Rocky, he's just a coward anyway. So he just going with the pack. But, I knew. When you see what you see. And like I said, you've seen it. So, you've seen 3 of them at once. When you see that, you know what you're seeing. You can't unsee it. Sorry, you just can't do it.
Absolutely.
Unless you got a good psychiatrist that can, hypnotize you and make you forget.
It's just like for many others. I mean, it's an unforgettable event when these things occur. I mean,
I still have dreams about it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. I mean, I don't forget about my moment. I mean, I've been interviewed and shared the story multiple times. I mean, sometimes if I close my eyes, I feel like I'm right there again, but, so.
Absolutely. But, like, especially like if you're in the woods or like even in the back, like in my yard sometimes, like I'll even be in the kitchen and staring out because it's kind of forested out there where I'm at, in my backyard, like pretty thick set of wood back there. Like I'll get to really deep looking for shit that's not there. You know what I mean? Like, and have flashbacks.
Right. Oh yeah.
And it's just weird. Yeah. So once you're traumatized by this type of event, you never heal. I don't care who you are. You can write all the books you want. You can get hypnotized many times you want. You're just going to waste thousands of dollars. Because when you experience this, you're never going to forget it. You're taking it with you to your grave, you know? So it is what it is.
One experience I had by myself, to me, there's at times I feel like it's more memorable, or actually it had more of an impact on me. And it wasn't a visual encounter. It was something that happened a year after the encounter in 2014 that six of us shared. Well, a year later, just in the same section of wood, same general area of woods just around the corner, I was camping by myself. It was during the hunting season. And are you there? I think. Oh, okay. I think you froze up there for a second.
We're good.
Yeah. So in the same general area, right around the corner, I was camping out during the hunting season. To make a long story short, I had walked out to the middle of the forest road with my spotlight, but the spotlight wasn't turned on. And like I said, I tell people this sometimes because it's something I do when I camp by myself. I just get this random idea just to walk out into the middle of the road, stand out there in pure darkness, kind of stop and listen, and kind of almost look around, even though you can't really see nothing.
Right.
Well, that's what I did this particular moment, and then I pulled the trigger on the spotlight, started shining in the tree line, which was roughly only 20, barely 20 feet away. First initial thing was I spooked up a deer. I didn't see the deer. You could hear it run off. Yeah. So I was like, oh, cool. So I started shining the spotlight. I panned it from my left to my right. And right as I got to the 2 o'clock position, whatever was just inside that tree line. Now, keep in mind, I didn't see nothing. Right. But undoubtedly, what I heard next was very large, very heavy, and bipedal. Right. You could hear you could hear the steps. Every step had a crunch and a thump to it. And I was feeling it right here, man. I was feeling it in my chest.
Right.
And when I heard that, that put the fear of God. I was really my heart was going up in my throat. Part of it was I was unarmed. I was by myself in the middle of the dark,
Yeah.
And and then I was walking backwards, going back to my camp. But then once I got back to my camp, I already had the fire going. I ended up throwing a couple more logs in the fire, and I instantly calmed. I calmed right down because I got to thinking after my mind settled. Well, whatever that was, if it meant any harm, it would have came at me because it was going away from me.
Away from you. Just as scared of you.
Right. But the thing is, it's just that moment, that whole situation, I'll never forget that. Like I said, even though it wasn't a visual encounter, it still had an impact on me, so.
Yeah, something that amiss, and you hear that, and you can feel them steps. It's at least 900 to 1,000 pounds, and walking and putting force down as it goes. See what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
That's intense. Just like the growl. That's how the growl hit me. The growl was so powerful, it vibrated my clothes and even my stomach area. I could feel it. The growl and it was just so intense. I think it's what froze me. Almost like infrasound, like a lion, maybe. But not as deep as a lion. This was deeper, actually. Yeah, a lion would be a little bit less than, I guess. Yeah, but lions still are so powerful with infrasound that they can
stun you.
They can stun their prey long enough to pounce. You know what I mean? These creatures, hybrids or whatever they may be, they are so powerful that they hit you when you're stunned for minutes, at least a minute. I was not moving. It was at least a minute I was froze still, And then after the fact, when I hit the ground again and felt the most vulnerable, I became useless again. You know what I mean? My legs wouldn't work. And my dad's, my uncles, and my other uncles, none of our legs would get it, get us going down that hill. It took 3 to 5 minutes for us all to get up and be able to get back down that mountain the rest of the way. And I felt like that was the moment that we got hit. We got hit with it. The zap, if you will. So the infrasound is what I feel like it was. It was. I just remember feeling so helpless at that moment. Like, this is it. This is over. We're gonna die, all of us. There's gonna be 4 or 5 come right down here any second. There's more with this thing, and they're coming, and they're gonna get us. We're gonna die. I felt like we were gonna die right then and there. That's how dreadful it was after the fact, and then feeling so helpless, stuck on the ground because you can't get up. And I'm rolling, and I'm trying to do a push up and then get up on my feet, but I can't because I have no power in my legs. I am that scared. I cannot use my damn legs. And so was my family members, every one of them. It was like almost like we were whining to each other as we were rolling around trying to do push-ups to stand up. We were like kind of like, like, I cannot believe this is going on. You know what I mean? Like, and making these faces as we're side by side each other. Like we're through. You know what I mean? Like that most horrific moment you would ever have in your lifetime. We all had it together as a unit, and we're still left weak and vulnerable. You know what I mean? This wasn't one person. This was 4 of us. And we all were left so vulnerable and weakened at that moment. It was intense, man. I've never had a moment that intense in my life. And I never will probably until the day I die. And that's guaranteed. So powerful.
Absolutely. Jeff, I want to give you this opportunity because we're coming to an end now.
Right.
Is there anything you want to throw out there, share with anybody, with everybody, anything you want to? Yeah, go ahead.
Let me say this. Well, we did have a 2-year lapse because of COVID, post-COVID, So post-COVID-19, had left us now. There was a 2-year window these things had, and I feel like it's why there's more sightings. So everybody out there camping and stuff this summer, be a little bit more cautious and aware, because I feel like the numbers have grown, and because of that fact, and I feel like that's why we're seeing more sightings than ever before, is because of that fact. You know what I mean? Had 2 years where not a lot of people did go into the forest because a lot of people were sheltered inside, afraid to die of COVID. So I feel like that gave them a moment to get their numbers up worldwide. And then be looking for the kids. I got another book coming out real soon. Bigfoot and Stellar Jays, Thanksgiving Day Celebration. That's for the kids. That's the 4th book of that series. That'll be coming real soon. And then after that, Thomas is going to put out The Last Hunt the Lost Trail. The last book. And the ending is exciting. It is amazing. But that's a from ages 6 and up to adults. You know what I mean? That's a good book. Like I said, that's my dad, my uncle, my papa. All in that story is the hunters that are going out to find the other hunters that got kidnapped. And then they experience some horrific stuff and then sever up. I'm not going to go all the way there, but just get the book. The Last Hunt the Lost Trail. It'll be out by next month. And just be careful when you're out in the woods because it's gotten a little bit more dangerous. The numbers have grown a little bit. I can guarantee you that. Almost with it. No doubt.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Be careful, people.
Very good. And lastly, let me add in there for the viewers and future listeners, as of August 11th, there will be no podcast next Friday because I will be in Pennsylvania for the Central PA Bigfoot Encrypted Festival happening in Ellisburg, Pennsylvania. So yes, I'll be out of town for that event, and we will pick back up the following Friday. Watch for my updates and my promotion posts regarding the next scheduled podcast. We will be back in a couple weeks. So, Jeff, I want to thank you again for being on here. You're an amazing guest. And for those who came on late, feel free to go back and watch this. Jeff shared a lot of awesome details with his experiences. You guys want to check that out and listen to that. Meanwhile, guys, this has been a great night. Thank you guys again. If you're new to viewing this channel, feel free to subscribe so you can stay on top of when we do go live. You'll get the notification. And don't forget, make sure you click that little bell icon after you click subscribe. So, and thank you guys again for everyone that's been on the live chat. And again, congratulations, Melissa Lester, on getting the correct response. And again, Jeff, we will have you back again in the future. That's for sure. So,
Right on, brother.
so
Glad to have
absolutely.
you. Glad you had me on there. I will definitely come back.
Sounds great. And
Right on, brother.
all right, sounds good. Thank you guys very much. Till next time, guys, we're out.
Good show. Good show.